Building the worksheets, most recent mobility. In this lesson, we are going to be creating a worksheet to highlight the most recent mobility value. We will then replicate the worksheet for each of our 6 mobility metrics. So let's go into Tableau. So with our Google mobility data loaded, what we're going to do is build our worksheets. So first thing I'm going to do is rename our sheet. Let's just call it KPI because it's a value. Let's keep it short. Let's call this parks. So we have a single worksheet. We are going to create a calculation to return us the most recent value. So what I want us to do is create a new calculation. Let's right click on parks for now. Create calculated field. Let's call this parks percent change from baseline. We're keeping the name, and let's call this most recent. Let's click apply. You can see the calculation has appeared on the side, but now I want us to do the following. I want us to write out a if calculation. If the date is equal to, and this is where we're going to use a level of detail expression. So because we have no scoping keyword and we have the curly brackets, we are literally taking the greatest date within our data context. So we're saying if the date is equal to the most recent date, return the value, else it'll bring back empty. The last thing I want to do is put an average. In case we have multiple values, we want to take the average baseline value. Let's click apply. Let's click OK. Now we are going to build a very simple KPI representation. So I'm going to take this value for the new calculation and drop it into text. As you can see, we have a value now. Let's click on text and edit this. Let's change this to be a little bit bigger. Let's make it 28 so that it really pops. Let's turn this into Tableau bold. So now we have a nice big value. And underneath, I want to put down or type out compared to baseline. Let's put that onto 2 lines. I'm gonna turn this back to Tableau book. As you can see, typically we will go up and down, we play around. Let's make that 8 because we don't want it to really stand out too much. Let's left align. And there we have it. We have our initial value. However, the number format is not really what we want. We don't really care about massive number of decimal places. So I'm going to right click on this object, go to default properties, number format. This is where it becomes fun and where you can really format your numbers. Click on number, custom, make it 2 decimal places. In suffix, type space and percentage sign. So here we have it. We have our KPIs. Also, another thing, we don't need the tooltip because it's not really adding much value. So let's switch off those tooltips. So now we have our parks KPI. What I want us to do is to replicate this for all of our other objects. However, I want us to also have a little bit of fun. In the data panel, I want us to right click on a blank space and select group by folder. I then want us to control click the 2 park calculated fields, go down to folders, create folder, and let's just type parks. So now all of the parks information will be together. What I want us to do now is to replicate this for our other metrics, and we are going to do this together. So the easiest way to do this is the following. let's create our calculated fields first. So let's right click on Parks percentage. Let's duplicate this. Let's edit this calculated field. Let's modify the name. Instead of parks, let's put transit. It's actually percent change, so we're going to rename it. As soon as you start typing transit, it will appear. As you can see, we've copied the calculated field, which means we've also copied the formatting, the default number format, not the formatting, but default number format. Let's click OK. Actually, I want to rename the following as well, because it's not percentage, it's percent. Let's keep it as consistent as possible. Now, let's add this to a folder. We're going to create a folder called transit. Let's put stations. Let's rename this as well. So we're going to repeat. As you can see, it's quite quick. Again, I am going to speed up in a moment. We don't want transit station anymore. Groceries and pharmacy. Let's rename this. Again, we want to make sure that we get the naming right. Spelling mistakes are a common part of the process, don't worry. Let's add that to a folder. Two more to go. Let's duplicate. Let's call this residential. Let's add it into its own folder. So I do this a lot, and I recommend you using folders as well. It just makes things a lot cleaner. You could see it a lot more easily, especially once you start getting more and more calculated fields. It becomes harder to manage, whereas this way it makes it a lot easier to maintain as well. I guarantee you the person supporting your work in the future will thank you for it, definitely. Almost there. This is retail and recreation. And this is how I typically start building off my dashboards. You have an idea, you build a single sheet, and then you continually replicate until you get everything that you want. Because then from there we can really speed up and complete our sheets. So the last one will be workplace. I'm just going to copy the text. There we go. And now as you can see, we have our calculated fields. We have our park sheet. Let's duplicate this. Let's call this groceries and pharmacy. All I'm going to do is take the most recent and drop it on top of the text to replace, and voila. Duplicate that again. Let's call this residential. Let's do the same thing. Let's duplicate the sheet. We want retail and recreation. keep duplicating. We're almost there now. And finally, workplaces. So now we have our 6 KPIs. It takes the most recent. What I want us to do is take date. Let's drop that into filters. For now, let's take relative date, and for example, to make things a bit quicker, the last 3 months. Let's click apply. I want us to add this to the context so that we can reduce the date, the end date, and then our calculation will work as well. Let's also apply this to all using the data source. Lastly, I want us to do this for country as well. Take country, drop that in to filters, select the single country for now, whichever country you want. I'm going to choose the United Kingdom. Click apply, OK. Let's right click and apply to all using this data source. So now we have the date, we have the country, everything seems happy, everything seems healthy. Now, if you need to, rewatch the video, have a look at the calculations. Otherwise, we are ready to move on to the next set of worksheets.